What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another repaint video. This week we're going to be taking on the Fierce Force Chialingosaurus here. Now I just recently got a couple of these off of Amazon, and you know, everybody's talking about this one here. It is you know, I sometimes mention that, like, you know, certain figures are in desperate need of some love in the paint department, and this one right here really is. It's super bland, so it's not the best, but you know, underneath all of this bland looking, you know, just solid colored plastic is a really nice sculpt on this thing. The person who designed it did a really good job. There are a lot of scale details on this, a lot of little areas that can be like picked out and really enhanced to make this thing look cooler. So that's what we're going to do in this video today. So I'm going to go ahead and get this guy out of the box, and we're going to get started with this repaint. First and foremost, we're going to be talking about the underside here. So, you know, the leg is molded in this sort of yellow ochre plastic, and it just stops, you know, and I was thinking maybe we would kind of continue it all the way underneath the underside of the figure, just to kind of add a little extra color to it. So if you're painting along with me, I've got this yellow ochre color. It's a combination of a couple of different colors here. We have apple barrel paints, if you're painting along with me, golden sunset yellow, and then I have a dark brown, sort of like just a dark brown color, because I really want to make that golden sunset really yellow ochre-y, if that's a word. We're going to make it a word, and we're just going to try and match this a little bit. Now I'm going to be doing some you know, intermediate, more advanced techniques towards the end of the video, but you can see here that I actually just added a little extra paint on the side just to kind of test the colors to see how well they work together, and they're pretty close. So, you know, you can go to a certain point in this video if that's how far you want to go in this paint job, you know, or you can go the extra step like I'm going to do later on in the video. But first off, we're just going to paint the underside of this figure. So again, if you're just painting along with me and you just want to do, you know, just enhance the factory colors on this thing, and that's all you want to do, this is a nice mixture of paint to use to get that match of the front arms, you know, or the front legs on this figure. So this paint here, of course, you know, apple barrel paints are hit and miss sometimes. They can have really good coverage, and then some colors can have really poor coverage. This particular color here has really poor coverage. I've got yellow ochre paint that's like more expensive high-end paint, but not everybody has access to the expensive stuff, so I tend to use the cheaper paints because more people have access to these, especially if you're just starting out. So that's usually why I tend to use the apple barrel stuff. I've got really nice paints that I could use, but you know, again, here you can see this is just one coat, and the green plastic is still showing through on the underside. So we're gonna have to do several coats of the yellow ochre to really get it a nice, smooth, clean coverage on the underside of the stomach. So I'm going to work on those extra coats off the camera. I'm going to add it to the tail, add little details here and there to it, and then we'll just sort of go over what I've done after I get those coats put on. All right, so I've got all of the coats put on underneath. There's about 3 coats of this yellow, but it's nice and smooth. We got a nice clean coverage here, no streakiness, no chalkiness. It's looking great, and you can kind of see sort of the details that I did. I kind of brought the stripes up into the thing, just sort of playing off what the figure is already designed, you know, the design of it. Now I put some stripes on his neck here, just sort of just keeping it really simple, but you know, adding that extra little bit of paint detail to it really does take it to the next level, you know. And if this is just how far you want it to go in the paint job, you know, you could paint the toe claws and the plates on the back can be done, but you know, we're going to be adding extra little details to this thing. So the video is going to be a little bit longer than normal videos, but I figured I would give you guys a nice long one here, that way you can kind of see, you know, the process of really taking this thing to the next level. So what I'm going to do next is take this yellow ochre, and I need to paint these back legs. I think that's kind of why it looks a little strange right out of the box, is because it's just the front legs molded in that yellow ochre color, and then the back legs are green. I think maybe it would look less weird if the front legs were also just that green color, you know, similar to the Fallen Kingdom Stegosaurus. But Painting the back leg anyways here with that yellow ochre color, and gonna kind of put some like designs sort of matching what's licking up the sides of the figure, up the legs, trying to kind of blend it all together and make it look cool. Again, rule of cool, don't be afraid to whip that out and use it when you're doing your repaints, because it's a really helpful tool to be able to just take things to the next level with your paint game, and just kind of play around and have some fun with stuff, So just adding the little stripes sort of licking up the side and just kind of blending it in with the brush. Pretty straightforward here, nothing super complicated in terms of that, but it's already looking better. And the yellow obviously doesn't really match up perfectly with the plastic that it's molded in, but that's okay because I'm going to be doing a wash on this thing and putting a lot more details on it, so it's not really going to matter if the two colors don't match at the point when I'm going to start washing it. If you're going to try and match it and you're only going to paint this far, you'll probably want to try to work with those colors a little bit just to get it to look a little bit closer, but honestly this kind of works. So I'm just taking the paint now and I'm going through and kind of very carefully picking out individual scales on the figure, just to kind of add a little extra detail to it and make some of the sculpt on this thing pop, because like I said, the sculpt work is really great on it. It is a really nice looking figure. It's just the kind of odd choice of colored deco on it. Just kind of makes it look a little on the boring side. But now for the green on this guy. So he's two different color greens. He's a darker kind of green lime, or not lime green, like a minty green, and then it's like a lighter minty green, I guess. So I've got two different colors here mixed together. I got a dark and a light, relatively close to the plastic. It's not a perfect match, but the color, I had to mix a bunch of paints together to get these colors. So to get the light tone of the light accents, I mixed these three colors together here, and then to get the darker tone, I added in some English ivy green, a little bit darker swampy color green, and then I added just a little drop of black in there to darken it up a little bit more. And it's a close enough color. Again, I don't really need to try to make it match perfectly to the plastic, because once the wash goes on, it's going to change the overall tone of this figure, so you're not even going to really even notice it. It's going to look like a whole, like entirely different new figure. It's not going to look exactly like the paint deco from the factory, and that's okay. So that's what I'm kind of going for with this repaint. So going through with the green, and again picking out a lot of the little scale details and the pebbles and stuff like that, just to make some of the areas pop. It's pretty straightforward here. You kind of use creativity and imagination, and just sort of put it down wherever you want it to be, and get it done. I mean, it's really pretty easy, pretty straightforward, not that bad. So the plates on the back, we'll talk about those real quick. I'm going to paint them. Again, not going to try and match the spikes on the tail, because everything is going to be getting a wash, so it's not really going to matter. But to get a close enough match for this right here, it's sort of like an antique white color, similar to this, but it also has a slight yellow tint to it. So I'm just going to use some of this yellow that I used for the underside, and I'm going to mix it in with that antique white color just to get a nice off-white yellowish tint. And that should be good enough. But then again, you could paint these plates any color that you wanted to. I'm just going to do this sort of bone color because of the wash I'm going to put on later. They will work really well together. The light with the burnt umber, sepia wash and stuff like that. So again, with white going over a dark, it's going to be super streaky. So white needs to be applied really thin, and multiple coats of that white to get really clean coverage on this thing. But it already looks really awesome. Those white plates really pop on it. Looks cool. So now we're going to go in with the wash. So this is the stage here where you could stop if you didn't want to go this far. This takes some commitment, but I'm going to go in and start washing everything with the inks that I've got. Now this ink here is it's a mixture of a bunch of different inks that I had. It's sort of like a melting pot of just leftover inks, and I mixed them all together. So this has got burnt umber in it, and it has sepia, and I think there might be some yellow ochre airbrush paint in there, and then there's also I think rubbing alcohol inside of it to thin it down a little bit. I've been using it for at least a year or two now, so I use it mainly as washes and stuff on things, so you can see sort of like the design and the style that it's the shade and tone that it creates. So I washed the other side of the body, and I let that dry, so you can kind of see what it looks like before the wash and after the wash. This is just helping to bring that really bright cartoony green down a little bit and give it a little bit more realistic skin tone. And this isn't the end, right? So we've got a lot more work to do on it. But I'm going to take that wash again, and I'm just going to finish washing the rest of this figure, really working that wash down into the recesses. I really want those to be darker, so I'm scrubbing it down into all the little areas. The entire body is going to get this wash, so it's going to be on the legs and everything like that. And it really works well with these colors. They look great together. It really gives it the sort of natural skin tone, kind of maybe like a woodland color or something. Somewhere you would see this figure, and it would have this dinosaur would be like in the woods or something. It would, kind of have that kind of vibe going on with it. But washing, pretty straightforward. It's thinned down with a little bit of water because I don't want it to be super potent. I do want it to be a little bit thinner than what it would be if it just came out of the bottle. So I have it on my wet palette here, and of course the wet palette, incorporates more water into the wash, so it kind of thins it down and helps me move it around and get it into all the little recessed areas and stuff like that, which essentially is the goal of the wash, is to just kind of provide shading and change the tone of it. So now I've got the secret weapon. I love to use it, transparent burnt umber in the airbrush, and concentrating the ink on the very tips of the plates. I want those to be nice and dark, and then I want it to sort of fade out into that burnt umber, almost red tone. It's going to make them look really cool, and they'll pop really nice against the green skin tone once I go back and start picking all that out. But the plates are going to look really great in this color. And we'll do the same thing down on the spikes that are on the tail, but this time I'm actually concentrating the ink on the base of the spikes and fading it out as I get closer to the tips of it. Just kind of gives it that realistic sort of bone keratin color or whatever. I don't know the scientific term for it, but it just looks cool, and that's what we're all about, making things look cool. So now we're going to go in and do some of the finer details before we get into the dirty work on this thing. So painting the eyeball, really tiny eye. I'm going to paint it a little yellow with a black pupil, and then I'm going to paint the claws or the nails with that same off-white, antique white color, and then give them a wash with the transparent burnt umber, focusing a lot of that wash up at the base of the nail. Really gives it a realistic look. And now we're going to go in, and this is the tedious part. Go back in with those two different color greens that I had and pick out each individual scale on the figure with the different color greens. So it's going to give it a variation of different green tones all over the body, mixed with the greens that have already been washed. So I'm not going to paint all of them, but I'm going to paint a majority of them, and I'm going to pick out some of the pebbles and stuff on the arm area, hitting those with the green, go up in between the plates and pick out a few of these scales here. It really makes sort of everything pop, and it really brings this thing together, and gives it a little pop of color, but also has that dark, gritty, realistic kind of vibe going. And I think that looks really, really great. This is a super tedious part right here. If you're not a patient person, this right here is not the repaint for you. Of course, you don't have to do this. This is extremely optional, but it really does look awesome. It looks like a real animal, and it's really cool. But this did take a long time to do this. I think this repaint, when I do repaints like this, normally ones that have a little bit more of a complicated paint deco on them, they do take me a couple of days to do. But most of the time I can knock a repaint out in a day, but this one right here did take a while. But this is the the price you pay for adding a little bit more realism to stuff. So the spikes on the tail are going to get a little wash with a very thin down airbrush paint, and this is actually just yellow ochre actually, and it's yellow ochre thin down, a little bit of water, and I'm just going over the white sections of the spikes, and that's going to bring down that brightness a little bit and just give them a little extra oomph of sort of realism and grittiness, and That's the aim of the game here with this particular repaint. We're not really going for super toyetic, we're going for a little bit more of a realism on this thing. But other than that, that is pretty much it for the repaint. So we'll do a little turntable side-by-side comparison with the one here that is the factory version. And this repaint definitely looks way less cartoony than this one. Just adding a little wash and some dry brushing and some airbrushing really can take a figure to the next level. So I know this video was super long. What are we running at, like 16, 17 minutes or something like that? That's not common for most of my videos. They're relatively like under 10 minutes, but this was a very complicated repaint, and I just kind of wanted to share this one with you, and maybe it would inspire you guys, But that is going to do it for me for this video. I appreciate you all sticking around and watching. For those of you who made it this far into the video, congratulations. You are troopers. But I really do appreciate all the love and support you guys have shown the channel over the years. You have all helped grow the compound to almost 50,000 subscribers here on YouTube, which to me is awesome. That right there brings joy to my heart. We're also crushing it over on Instagram too. The compound is growing on all social media platforms, and that is just awesome. So I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video and you got something out of it, and you found the information provided useful, and of course it has inspired you to get out there and repaint your figures. If you do, remember to tag me over on Instagram at the Jurassic Park Compound, because I always love to see what you guys can come up with. For more Jurassic related content, you know where to find me. Links will be in the description box below. You guys take care, and I'll see you around the compound.